Welcome to Non-Partisan Hacks, where we talk about good government from the local government on up.
We're your hosts, Sean Wood.
I'm Joel Grenz.
I'm both city councilors with a front row seat to how local government really works and sometimes doesn't.
All right, well, let's fade the music down there because we just got back from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference, also known as FCM. And in this episode, we're breaking down what we learned, why it matters to you, and what a 21st century tax system might look like. So, all right, Sean, let's kick things off here. What is FCM?
The FCM is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. If anyone out there is familiar with the Union of BC Municipalities, which is just a federation of all of the local governments here in BC on the federal level, nationwide, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is kind of its equivalent, its big brother equivalent.
So basically, in our council, we get two of our councillors, so the mayor and one councillor will go every year to the conference. It's in a different location in Canada every year, and this year was in Ottawa, our nation's capital, which was kind of a fun, unique opportunity because it's a brand new government that was just elected, and they just had the throne speech with the King of England and the, I guess, King of Canada as well, sort of, yeah. I don't know, doing the throne speech on behalf of the new government. So it was basically thousands of municipal officials gathering together, lots of seminars, workshops, voting on resolutions. Also, the key thing really, I think, for us is the opportunity to get together with other counterparts from across the country and learn from them.
Yeah, relationship building is kind of the term I prefer over networking. Networking sounds a little bit cold. Relationship building, you get to meet locally elected officials from across the country. You get to hear what their problems are, what they're dealing with, possibly their solutions. On the federal level of FCM, obviously, MPs are involved, and we spent quite a bit of time with our own MP and some of the MPs that won the recent elections from around our riding.
Yeah, and networking, yeah, it's a bit of a bland term, but you learn a lot interacting in an informal setting with people who actually love to talk about local politics, which if you're listening to this politics podcast, you probably enjoy that as well. We do it a lot around the table, which is very formal, but it's not very often that we get the opportunity to talk to other people who are in the same position, the same role, struggle with a lot of the same problems, and have the same things they're thinking about all the time, and be able to do that in an informal way. And one example of that was over lunch, there was a rather heated discussion around the Vancouver Island Regional Library system and what changes may be needed there. And that was a great opportunity to really hash out some issues, discuss what's going on before, instead of it being so formal and everyone's, I guess, more careful about having to really have formulated their thoughts before going into a meeting. But when you can do it in a more informal setting, it's a good opportunity to sort of test your ideas. And there was some idea testing happening at that lunch that we had.
Yeah, there was.
It got a little heated. I mean, we ended up leaving the table, but still, it's a great thing. I learned just sitting there and hearing people who've been at that board for quite a while talking through these issues. By the way, municipal councillors end up on the board of the Vancouver Island Regional Library, and so you get through your council election, you may get appointed to be on that board as well, and then you're responsible for yet another quite large budget that is individually taxed on people's tax returns. So it's another sort of level of government that is flows out of being a municipal councillor.
Yeah, it's a service. If you look at your property taxes, you'll see the Vancouver Island Regional Library on there, and that is related to the library services that you see at our local library and a library across the entire island. Of course, they offer some amazing services. You can get books shipped from other libraries. Hopefully, people are aware of all of the services that you can get. There is LinkedIn Learning as part of your library membership. There's a lot of publications, newspapers, magazines that you can subscribe to using your library membership. I'm not
Netflix?
on the library board. I don't believe there's Netflix. Maybe in the library there is. I'm not on that board, but I just know there is a lot of services offered, and you will see what you contribute to the Vancouver Island Regional Library on your tax requisition.
So there you go. Yeah. Little mini education there on the Vancouver Island Regional Library. So in terms of the value, what is the value? Why would the average homeowner, taxpayer, member of a local community, why would they want their local government official? Why would they want you to attend FCM, Sean?
Yeah, a lot of the ask with FCM is advocating to the federal government for it to provide reliable financial means for local governments to provide the services that we do. Essentially, local governments provide we support about 60% of the infrastructure, and we do it on about 10% of the taxation across Canada.
And that taxation is taken from?
At the local government level, we really only have one tool, and that's property taxes, which isn't the best way to raise taxes because it's a regressive means. It's not based on income, and just because your property may be worth a certain amount doesn't mean that you're liquid enough to pay your bills. And so the other orders of government, provincial and federal, both have many other tools and more progressive ways of raising that funding. And we don't say no to grants or one-time contributions from those orders of government, but it is really needed that we have a reliable source of funding to pay for the infrastructure, like a pollution control center, for example, in order to build and support the housing that both of those orders of government are asking for.
Yeah, and I think we'll do a little bit more chatting about that topic when we get to our quote take segment. But the interesting thing is that a lot of people don't realize that the main way to pay for all these things is from property taxes, and that's obviously not based on your income. It's based on the value of your property, which is essentially your wealth. So it is kind of a wealth tax for all those people out there who are talking about wealth tax these days. But so in terms of getting a better approach to funding these major projects that municipalities need to take care of, having 2,000 people show up in one place over a few days and talking to the federal government, asking the federal government in one unified voice, that's one of the major reasons why it's important that we participate in this. But there are some other reasons as well beyond sort of trying to get that new fiscal framework. It's also the opportunity to learn more. We face a lot of challenges at the municipal level, individually and as an organization, that working together we can learn from each other, get best practices, find out new tools and what people are doing in other communities. I definitely saw some of that in some of the workshops I attended, but also through just the one-on-one conversations with other people. And then we've also, of course, get the chance to do a bit more kind of bonding across the different orders of government, but also across municipalities. So spending time informally with people that are from our neighboring municipalities is one thing that we did, and that was definitely valuable for me. And I also, did I win that push-up contest?
I don't know. Did you win one?
Oh, maybe you weren't there. Yeah,
I was not in one.
the mayor of North Cowichan,
Rob.
And yeah,
how many did you do?
Well, I stopped at 17.
17's pretty good.
I didn't know what the bar was actually because I came as a late entrant. And
he can do like 50 or 60.
I think he said he did 20-something, 26 or something like that.
Oh.
But I just stopped because it seemed like it was like this is just going to go on forever.
Yeah, forever. 17 forever. It's pretty close. The infinity symbol, 17 is close.
So what does it cost? Like it costs to go to this convention, obviously, and like everything else, it's property taxes that go to pay for it. Do we want to talk a little bit about ways that ways that maybe we try to get value out of this for both from a financial? We've talked a little bit about what we get out of it by being there, but from a financial perspective, what we're putting into it, how can we mitigate that for the average taxpayer?
Yeah. Joel, I think you and I are pretty fiscally conscious. We run a pretty tight ship at the City of Parksville. Our finance rating is excellent. We do occasionally read stories of other cities, such as a councillor in Calgary, that he was submitting false receipts for expenses at taxpayer expense. And,
he's taking his family out, supposedly taking his family out on expensive nights on the town, and then claiming in his expense forms that he was meeting with someone important, and then through the follow-up that was done in I guess like a forensic audit or something, they followed up with the supposed people that he was meeting with. Turns out he wasn't meeting with them at all. He was just enjoying some time on the budget of the city.
Yeah. I think you and I are really conscious about that. And so you and I, since we were kind of appointed to be able to go this year, we kind of made some conscious decisions to carpool. I drove us down to Nanaimo. We flew from Nanaimo to Vancouver to Ottawa, and then we shared a cab to the hotel, and we shared a room.
We even shared a room. That's got to be some fiscal responsibility there. I mean, the sacrifices that one makes.
It is, and I mean, within kind of the bylaw for sending us on trips or from the city of Parksville, we can't have separate rooms, so we can have separate rooms, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that we tried to really, make it as cheap as we can because we are using other people's money, and so that does play into it. And the guy from Calgary, he was convicted. His expenses came back from FCM a couple of years ago, and they were almost twice of what any other councillor or the mayor's was. So his really jumped out at accounting there. And so we don't want to do that. We're, other people are picking up the tab for us. So we really want to provide the value, if we're going to go on.
Well, the other factor too, is that our community is much smaller than Calgary, and every penny, it's the same price for us to attend FCM as it is for other councillors anywhere else in the country, other than maybe the flight price difference and all that. But the cost to attend the conference, as far as I understand, is the same, but it's drawing from a much smaller tax base. So all the more reason why we want to be careful. And it's the kind of thing that maybe people who come from a smaller community think about a little bit more than those that come from a larger community that has a much, much larger tax base.
Yeah, and this kind of plays into what value we can bring back as well. Obviously we are spending a little bit of money to get there and back, but we spent some time with our MP, Gord Johns, and part of that comes back to he'll want to try to find ways and money to support us in our community, and we saw that with the federal $7 million contribution to the Ravensong Pool expansion, which of course the referendum failed. But Gord, from my understanding, did a lot of legwork in Ottawa once he heard that expansion was happening, and he wanted to make sure that there was a federal contribution if at all possible. We haven't necessarily said no to that contribution. We may find a way to still put it to good use, but building that relationship with your MP, if he feels like we are amicable and we want to chat with him, and he has a relationship with us, that pays.
Does he feel that you're amicable?
I think so.
The impression you got?
I think so.
Okay, good.
I think so.
Then mission accomplished.
He and I go back to when I ran against him in 2019. So he and I have history.
Was that also amicable?
It actually was. I mean, I ran.
You amicably lost to him in 2019.
I did.
It's very amicable of you.
I did. Yeah. Well, that wasn't my choice. That was the choice of the voters at the time. But I made sure I ran a respectful campaign, and I think he felt like I wasn't really throwing him under the bus very often. So, yeah,
not very often. So the key word there was value, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, personally, I'm a value shopper. Like, I try to buy when the price is right, and I also try to take that approach in terms of thinking about value at the municipal work that I do. How do we get value? So it's not like, don't ever spend, don't be a cheapskate. You do need to spend on some stuff, but you spend when it's a good value. And I think we really were able to find ways to get value from going to conventions like FCM in the past, like UBCM, AVICC, has resulted in terms of the relationships that we built there, the things we've learned have turned into valuable things for our local community that we can bring back here, whether it's maybe having a relationship with the minister that can then down the road help you out if there's something that affects the community. That has happened a few times in Parksville and in our work here. And having those relationships really, really does help. So yeah, in terms of the things that happen in FCM, there's the workshops, there's the networking, which you called relationship building, but there's also the whole structure of like participating in this organization called FCM, which also involves other things like being on a board, or it's organized basically as a board, just like many of the things we do. We love boards here in municipal government, it's just boards. But there is a board for FCM, and that board is made up of people that are elected from local government, and that can sometimes result in some awkward situations, like the current or the past president of FCM was no longer able to continue being the FCM president because he, during that time, while he was president, lost his election as mayor in his local community, no longer was mayor, therefore could no longer be president of FCM. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic that happens there. But it is made up of people that are local government folks that volunteer their time to be part of the FCM board to make sure that that organization is successful, because the success of that organization then does trickle down to all of our communities. So Sean and I, we are on 2 committees. So there are standing committees for FCM that are working on policy ideas and shaping the policy that FCM will then ultimately bring to the federal government that are priority items for local governments. So that's been a very interesting experience to be part of that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on being on those committees at all. And
yeah, just to give our listeners an idea of what being on an FCM committee is. Often they're bilingual meetings. Sometimes the chair of the meetings will speak in French or English. Yeah, I don't speak French very well either. But you'll have, maybe you have 30, 40 people on the Zoom call, and we just kind of zoom in most of the time from our home offices. And then we'll look at resolutions and we'll discuss them, and either we, as a committee, will pass them up to the board as a recommendation, or we will not recommend to the board. We'll have a vote on the call after we discuss and amend, kind of the usual bylaw or policy or resolution process. And then that goes up to the board level, and the board will move it on or not from there. And so each committee kind of works on a different set of policies for all of Canada. And so that's what the committees do.
And the other thing that being part of the committee allowed was to participate in advocacy days, which happens every year. It's basically a week-long event where board members and committee members go to Ottawa and set up multiple meetings with different ministers or members of parliament, or even senators. So I was able to go, you were able to go in December. I did a meeting with the senator, which was first time I've ever really, I think, interacted with the senator, and pretty cool to be able to do that from a local government perspective and be the voice for local government to a senator. And because they ultimately do help shape the legislation as well in sort of a less partisan way. And that was kind of interesting to chat with him. And then we go there and basically try to push the FCM local government agenda forward in these meetings. And we're kind of like lobbyists, but the less evil or less, I don't know what people have these things about lobbyists, but
we're not lobbyists with regard to a specific industry or corporation. We have been elected, and so the people have already chosen us to be their advocates.
For the record, I don't think lobbyists are evil, but I think there's some perception out there that trying to work on getting government to advance your interests is they're attached to a specific industry or a company, and we're not. We've been elected, and so our advocacy is for our constituents, and in this case we are advocating for all of the local governments across the entire country, and building those relationships with MPs and senators, and then having a week to sit in their offices and help with those FCM policies that we want to see. The louder the FCM voice is in Ottawa, the better for local governments across the country. And so FCM, is that federation that wants to have a loud voice and is getting louder. And, when the president of FCM gets to sit with the brand new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, which is what happened just this past week, then we do have a serious voice, because not everyone gets to have a little fireside chat with the new Prime Minister. Well, Sean, that sounds like the perfect segue into this episode's quote take. So let's cue that on up.
Quote take.
Okay, so what do we have? What do you have on this quote take? It is actually, as Sean mentioned, the aforementioned Rebecca Bligh, president of FCM. during the fireside chat with our new Prime Minister.
Yeah, and just to set it up a little bit more, so our viewers are listening, but they can't see, and we have Mark Carney sitting in a comfortable chair across from FCM President Rebecca Bligh.
There are flags.
And there's a lot of Canada flags behind them and some FCM logos and stuff, but they're in front of a room of about 2,000 locally elected officials from across the entire country. And so Mark Carney is now sitting in front of all of the elected officials across the country who have gone to FCM, who are responsible for 60% of the infrastructure across the entire country, who are using budgets that add up to about 10% of the taxes across Canada. And that's what they're trying to manage. And President Rebecca Bligh is going to ask him a little bit of a question here.
Of course, on your agenda and ours as a primary concern. And what we're looking to have is a structured, collaborative,
she'll get wound up here, I think,
mature and sincere conversation about how to reform our fiscal tools as municipalities that were designed in sort of the horse and cart era, and yet we're tackling 21st century modern day challenges that aren't going to go away. So our ask to you, Prime Minister, is to work with us on designing what that looks like in terms of a new fiscal program that, as you said, keeps municipalities whole and makes sure that we can grow this country together with all orders of government working in partnership with one another. And if you would make that commitment to work with us in that conversation as we continue working together in the coming months and years.
There you go. As you can see, that resulted in quite a bit of applause there. We're just going to have a commercial now. Oh, wait. We don't have a sponsor yet. Calls for sponsorship opportunities. So for me, the thing that jumps out there to kick off this take is the horse and cart era. So many of the structures that we've got set up in our country do come from before things like very, very expensive pollution control plants. They come before so many of the different things that local governments have ended up having to take on. It used to be that the idea was, well, I own a house in the neighborhood, so I should have to maybe also contribute to the sidewalk that goes to the house. Oh, okay, maybe the road, maybe the lights along the road. You can see how that kind of keeps going and going till eventually now local governments are dealing with all kinds of things like, subsidizing housing for other people or supporting, well, obviously police, with huge cost right there.
Fire. Yeah,
fire, which is another, maybe a bit more natural one, but you kind of keep going on to things like now the cities are dealing with things that are really very much healthcare. Like their healthcare is clearly something that is provincial responsibility.
Mental health and addictions.
Like that's stuff that is not really something that was meant to be paid for out of property taxes, but that's what we're seeing today. Hence the need to have this conversation about a new fiscal framework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Pollution Control Center, French Creek Pollution Control Center, to bring something that's a little bit closer to home as a reference. I believe the budget might be $145 million right now, and by the time it's done, maybe we get to $190 million. I'm not sure. The provincial government threw in $8.5 million, I believe, but then after some developer construction cost, contributions of $2,000, we kind of only got, say, $6 million. Sorry, $2 million. We might only got $6 million from the province for that. So it's a gigantic project with huge price tags. Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, I won't go on about that, but these are huge price tags that are being asked at the local government level that only come from property taxes. And so when Rebecca is speaking to the Prime Minister, the idea is that, hey, local government is taking on a lot more than it was designed to. Let's figure out a solid, ongoing way for those local governments to get the work done to support the housing that both the province and the feds are going to be asking for.
I think the answer is allowing local governments to print their own currency. Is that it?
No, Joel Grenz, no, let's not do that. Maybe the federal government shouldn't even do any more of that either, even though from my understanding they actually weren't. But no, let's not do that. Let's just be wise with the dollars we have. Let's grow the economy.
The federal government does have its own currency.
It does.
Just to be clear for our listeners.
It does.
In case you weren't aware.
Growing the economy, I think, is the best way to pay for all of this stuff. and raising taxes is what we do at the local government level to pay for the services that we vote on to provide. But
well, and that's like, I'm going to stop you there because that's one thing that is a little bit odd to me, or I don't know. When you think about it, imagine every year the federal government releases their what's our number this year? What did we raise taxes by this year? 5%, 10%, 12%? How much is GST going to go up? Is it going to go? We're going to increase it by 5%. So it's currently 5% now in BC. We're going to add it up. What's the math on that?
The answer to this question, Joel Grenz, is that the province and the feds are terrified to increase taxes because they feel like they have a lesser chance of being elected if they do so. And so they have the ability to borrow and run into deficits. And local government does not run deficits. We're legislated not to. But even if we were allowed to, I don't think that you and I would at the City of Parksville level. I would like to think we would.
It's all about value. If the deficit is going to deliver more value at the end of the day, sure, but not to pay for the ongoing operational costs. You would never want to do that for sure at the municipal level.
Right. If capital costs are going to be huge and you do have to borrow. However, the credit rating agencies do look down the road and see, they try to figure out if you'll be able to get out of that hole. And when they lower your credit rating, they just don't see the vision that you might see at the provincial or federal level. So I would mention that.
It's a good thing to note for sure. So yeah, I mean, basically, my point on this is that it's interesting that at the local government level, there's an expectation that property taxes will increase, that the rate will go up. What is it, 5%, 10%? We've seen some pretty high increases actually in a lot of local governments over the past couple of years since I've been elected. And that same expectation, the fact that there is that expectation in some ways entices provincial and federal governments to continue offloading things onto the local governments because, hey, they'll just increase the property taxes to pay for all these things that really are things that we should be taxing for at our level and then delivering those services because those services often end up being provincial and federal. So bring this all back to the fiscal framework. When we had very few things that municipalities were delivering, taxes were much lower, federal and provincial taxes maybe relatively higher. And so we need to work out a new way to make sure that the federal and the provincial governments pay for all these things out of their less regressive ways of taxation. So their municipal taxes, they come out of the value, as mentioned, of the property, not about the flow of the money. So if I'm buying something at a store, add 5% to that, sure, that's money that is flowing in out of my pocket and into someone else's pocket, tax that along the way. The carbon tax did that, and income taxes do that. Tariffs do that. So these are different ways of taxing, and property taxes don't vary based on how much money you have. It's based on the value of your property, which isn't always completely correlated with the actual money you have.
Yeah, you definitely don't have it in the bank necessarily, even though your property value has gone up. I wanted to mention that, we are legislated at the local government level to not run deficits, and we have to raise the property taxes to pay for the services. And the reason that we are legislated to do that through the Local Government Act and the Community Charter is because the provinces know that they won't have a lot of problems financially with the local governments because by law, we have to run balanced books. If we're going to borrow, we have to go to a referendum or an alternative approval process, and that's just good governance. And when we see responsibilities being offloaded by the provincial government to us, your property taxes will go up. And so we have the choice at local government to either raise the taxes to pay for the things that are being offloaded
or raise a stink.
Or raise a stink. And so pushing back on those things that are not our responsibility or jurisdiction, we find ourselves doing that a lot. And if we're successful in that, then that's less responsibility that's being passed down to us, and that helps keep property taxes low. So this is the role that you and I find ourselves in, Joel Grenz.
Absolutely.
And FCM is part of that.
And FCM is essentially raising a stink in a respectful way, for sure, and trying to educate federal government, in this case, about these challenges and the need for a new way to do our arrangement here. So Yeah. So just to wrap up on FCM, I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about kind of our biggest takeaways from FCM. Anything stick out for you about it? Like for me, this was my first time attending the convention. And I think you've gone before, Sean, so maybe I'll kick it to you in terms of what you want residents to take away from FCM, what you accomplished there and what you learned and what you're bringing back to Parksville.
Sure. The first year I went was in Toronto. It's really overwhelming when it's your first year in local government and then you go to FCM and there's thousands of people from across the country. It's overwhelming to try to, soak in the different sessions and choose which ones you're going to get the most out of and be able to bring back some value to your local government. You're learning names of councillors and mayors and MPs. And then this year I kind of had a better handle on where I wanted to spend my time. And I think we mentioned it earlier in the session that I spent quite a bit of time kind of getting to know our locally elected MPs, who one of them is an incumbent, but the other one was brand new, and that's Tamara Cronus from Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Yeah, and two different parties as well. I think it's worth noting. And I mean, in this case, both are not government parties, but one is NDP and one's Conservative.
Mm-hmm. And I try to be nonpartisan as possible and just build relationships. And I've found that it's a really good way to represent local government. We've already spoke about this in our other podcast, Joel, that we're nonpartisan at the local government level. And what else do we take away? The sessions, new connections. It's nice to see a new government. I think Mark Carney sitting down with Rebecca Bligh on stage with that quote take, I think that is really promising. I think he understands, and I think FCM has a very strong voice in Rebecca Bligh. I also want to mention UBCM, which is the provincial level. Actually, local government kind of is a child of the province, much more so than a child of the federal government. Often the province, I feel, isn't that happy with us kind of going around them.
Because they created, by child, they literally created local governments through the Local Government Act. Mm-hmm. They don't exist constitutionally. So that's why we're the children.
Yeah. And UBCM and President Trish Mandeo does a great job at UBCM as well. And you want to grow those voices for local governments to kind of push back a little bit on responsibilities that are kind of being handed down to us that are not within our jurisdiction, and also ask for reliable funding so that we can do all of the things that we're being asked to do, both provincial and federal level.
Yeah, well, and for me, I'd say sort of two things that really stuck out for me. There are lots of things that I see as being beneficial to being able to attend this convention, and I will add that the fact that I was able to go to the advocacy days last December before this did give me a leg up, and being on those committees gave me a leg up. I already knew some people there. I had a general idea of what I was getting myself into by going to this convention. But there are two things I would say. Is the first was insight. And the second was phone numbers, but I'll start with insight. So we have a few things. We had actually leading up to FCM, we had a motion coming before council on a particular topic, and I wasn't quite sure where I should go on that motion when it came time to vote and talk about that particular topic. And so at FCM, I was able to talk to multiple people in one sort of contained place and time about this, just informally. I was able to ask them, hey, what's your experience of this in your community? Is this the kind of thing that you would want to have in your community? What is your insight that you can bring to this? And that really helped me kind of understand how I wanted to tackle that when it came time to speak to it and vote on it at the council table. And it also, relatedly, led to me kind of creating another option for that motion that ended up getting passed by council sort of as an alternative. And it came out of the fact that I had separate conversations about a different issue that I ended up tying together. So, and this comes down to everything. So just to quickly touch on it, maybe this is a whole podcast episode unto itself, but during FCM, we received, I should say, while we were there, we received notice from the provincial government that Parksville was on the list of communities that would be getting housing targets from the provincial government, which I don't know. My first response was to be gobsmacked by that idea, because if you talk to people in our community, they will tell you there's been a lot of new housing being built in our community. So the idea of being on the list of communities that should be building more housing was like, what? And then shortly after receiving this information, I was actually at an event that was part of the FCM convention with the mayor of one of the most notorious development communities on Vancouver Island, Langford, where they are known for the amount of new home construction that they've been doing over the past several years. They too were added to that list. So out of that, I was able to chat with him a bit about it. I chatted with a few of the neighboring community municipal councillors about that same topic, that they're getting these housing targets. And through that, we ended up, I brought that back to the table in Parksville, and I think we may do a separate episode on this entire topic, but the insight I got from being able to talk to other people, exchange notes. Am I crazy here? No, you're okay. We both see this issue. Okay. Then it gives me the extra incentive, motivation, and understanding I need to actually, I think, do something that will hopefully have an impact on our community in a positive way. And then the second item is phone numbers, and it is related to the first item. The relationships, I now have phone numbers from people across the country.
Yep.
I add them on Facebook. I do this intentionally. I want to have those relationships because one day they're going to call on me. I'm going to call on them. Hey, maybe we'll call them to be on the podcast. But the ability to get that the perspective of other people, it's hugely valuable. Sometimes you feel a bit alone when you're a municipal councillor. And being able to bounce things off of others and just really have that insight, it's critical to the job and really makes the whole thing a little bit more. I enjoy the job, but it really adds to in my enjoyment and feeling like I can do something.
On the housing targets that are going to be coming to Parksville, we're not sure what those targets are yet. To be fair, hopefully we have met most of them. The surprise will be if we're failing in a lot of areas of those housing targets. That is where a lot of the surprise is going to be for both residents of the city of Parksville and mayor and council and city staff. If we have hit most of those already, then great. From my understanding, the housing minister is eventually going to have every city on this list of housing targets. And so it's going to be a tailored list of housing targets. And your resolution, which asks the province to take into consideration existing infrastructure and the infrastructure needs of those housing targets, is much more well-rounded than just housing, because the housing minister does not care where the pollution control center is, how big it is. He doesn't care about the size of water mains. He doesn't care about how expensive the fire department's going to be. He doesn't care about when we're going to hit 15,000 population in the city of Parksville.
Which will result in big policing cost increases. And absolutely. Yeah. So that's maybe that's a good way to tease our next episode, because I imagine we might be covering this very topic coming up soon, and we can dive into that resolution a bit more. And but yeah, until then.
Just before we go, if Ravi is listening, Ravi, I know you care. It's just not kind of in your mandate to worry about our pollution control center. So I know you care.
He's up at night thinking about our pollution control center.
And Ravi, thank you for listening. I appreciate you tuning in.
That he's our biggest fan. It really means a lot. Well, that's it for Non-Partisan Hacks. My name is Joel Grenz. I'm a Parksville City Councillor.
And I'm Sean Wood. I'm also a Parksville City Councillor.
Thanks for listening.
Really appreciate it.